Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Big Brother Retrospective podcast. We are back this week to talk about Big Brother All Stars 2, Big Brother 22. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong. With me this week to talk about Big Brother 22, it's Matt. How you doing, Matt?
I am good. Yeah, affectionately referred to, I think, by many at the time as small stars, where we'll talk about who we have in the cast here and the season that they delivered to us when we needed Big Brother, maybe the most that we've ever needed Big Brother in our lives. This is what they gave to us. We'll get into it all.
Yes. Yes. Just 1 year after Big Brother 21, disappointed many. So-
Oh yeah, what a fantastic stretch we have here. 21 right into 22. Look, a lot of people seem like they left watching the show specifically after these two back-to-back seasons, and then season 23, 24, some good stuff in there comes along, and we have to like tell people about it. Like, no, come back. There's good stuff happening again. But these two seasons did not help.
Yes. Well, we do have some unfinished business to talk about with Big Brother 21. The poster for that season, the top 3 voted players. Matt, who do you think was voted to be on the poster for Big Brother 21?
So I've been waiting for this question,
Okay.
anxiously thinking through the answers.
Mm.
There's, to me, two obvious answers. Big Brother 21, I think you have to first of all go America's favorite player. Nicole, while the reputation diminishes a lot in BB22, which we will get to. In BB21, she was like the only beacon of hope. She was the only thing, like, we're only person worth rooting for towards the end of that game. So gotta go Nicole. I think Tommy is like the flashiest, most exciting player at that end game aside from Nicole that you're really like, depending on how you're reviewing the season, still rooting for. And then after that is tricky. I think my best guess would just have to be Jackson based on him winning and there not being a ton of other obvious answers. But if you told me it was like a Kemi or a Jessica, more likely I would say Kemi. I wouldn't be blown away.
Okay. Well, you're not too far off because Nicole, Tommy, and
Cliff.
Cliff
Look at
snuck
Cliff
into that
go.
3rd place.
Okay. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that. I would have gotten to Christy before I got to Cliff. I don't know. You were talking about this on the podcast last week. I feel like there was just a lot of like anger directed his way from
Mhm.
the end game that I would have thought, but I don't know. Time has passed. I guess the love
I
has
think
come back
probably
around.
also like look at the audience. I think this audience is probably higher on Cliff than maybe the more casual audience would have been. Or honestly, I think there's probably like a middle ground where it's like this audience is pretty high on Cliff. Then like other super fan audiences, maybe a little bit less so. But then the casual audience, I think, actually did like Cliff a decent amount. So
Could you say off the top of your head what other seasons the whole final two has been shut out of a poster? Do you know any recent
it's a
ones?
good question.
It's
I'm
kind of
not
wild.
sure I can think of one where that has happened.
No Jackson, no Holly. But
Yeah.
the rest of the final 5 makes it onto the poster here. I mean, it makes sense. And if you want to like look at this season and have an ounce of hope that you would enjoy it on a rewatch, you would look at this poster. So
Yeah, we're also like we're really starting to get these posters more and more artistic
I
here.
was gonna say
I'm digging it.
this is fun. We have a lot more color here. It looks good. Nicole, main character. I would assume she was the first place vote getter.
Yes, yes. I think Sam said when he saw this poster, "Oh, this looks so much more fun than the season is."
It does.
So there you go. All right, that was Big Brother 21, but we are here to talk about Big Brother 22, Big Brother All Stars 2. And it's interesting. Survivor was often referred to by the like location for a while, but then sometimes theme. Now we're just calling it Survivor 40 whatever. But Big Brother pretty generally was always referred to as the number of season. Even Big Brother All Stars was like that's the season that was most referred to as the name of it, like Big Brother All Stars rather than Big Brother 7. But even then, you'd often refer to it as Big Brother 7. You'd hear it referred to as Big Brother 7 a lot. However, with the introduction of Big Brother All Stars the second, I feel like it's killed off Now you just say Big Brother 7 and you say Big Brother 22 because otherwise it would get a little confusing. And this logo is not helping the case because it just says Big Brother All Stars.
I feel like the promo for this season, I just remember seeing the like, look, we were waiting. This is, I'm sure, something that we were about to get into. Waiting how long for a true all-star season to come back into the mix here in the franchise. And so when the promo was coming out, I feel like every season leading up to it, you would always see, is there a star? You know, just like everybody grasps onto anything that they can see, and thinks that maybe this is the year that it's all stars. And as we were getting closer to this season actually happening, and of course the COVID of it all, we'll talk about too. But it was just like, oh my God, it's happening. It's really happening. Look at this beautiful logo. So yeah, I mean, the emphasis on all stars made sense at the time until, 3 months later, we feel differently.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot happening in the world at this time. George Floyd was murdered, COVID hit, and the world is in shambles. Big Brother Canada season 8 was canceled mid-season, and so there was some question as to, are we even going to get a Big Brother US season this year, or are we not going to get one at all? And then when it was announced that we would get one, it was like, well, what will it look like? And yeah, for like a decade at this point, people had been speculating, when is the next All-Star season going to hit? And I think from the perspective of sort of, I think how people have come to see this season, it was kind of like, well, we've got All Stars in our back pocket. We can't really do normal casting. So why don't we just finally do All Stars? People are home. They have nothing else to watch anyway. So this will be like a big moment for the series. And I think the result of that was a cast that many fans found to be lackluster in terms of what they were expecting. Now, I actually don't necessarily agree that the cast was that bad on paper. I think it's actually a pretty good one. A lot of the people on this cast were people that a lot of people were looking forward to seeing play again and could certainly be considered all-stars. I think David obviously stands out as somebody that was like, why is David on an all-star cast? He was a first boot. Even David was seen as somebody that was like, he had some promise and he was unfairly taken out too early. Was he a fit for an all-star season? Not really, but he certainly could have been a returnee on some season. And then you had a lot of other people like Nicole Anthony, like Keisha, Memphis at the time, Tyler, certainly, Cody, Enzo at the time was a pretty highly requested return. A lot of these people were looking forward to seeing them. Davon was coming back. Ian, Bailey, Kaser, and Janelle, massive stars. They were on the original All Stars. The cast was actually not bad. Now, what happened was that so many of the people on this cast, and I should pull this over to this is our image of the cast, I guess. I don't think they did official photo shoots for this season. They didn't have a photo.
No, the pictures were all of them like outside of their sequester rooms, maybe, or like they took a picture back home. Everybody had a different background of their cast photo that was just totally makeshift.
But basically what happened was so many of the people that played on this season disappointed the fans' expectations of them that I think in retrospect, it seems like a really lackluster cast because so many of the people that fans thought would be really good on a return ended up being kind of a dud. And then on top of that, you look at a couple of the wild choices like David or Christmas, and you go, wow, what a failure of a cast. But honestly, the reality is, I think on paper, this was a pretty good cast, especially given the circumstances and the time frame they had to put it together.
I'm 100% with you as far as like, this is a good group of names. Of course, there's two major problems I think still a big problem in the show right now. Of course, one, we are so close to the diversity initiative kicking in. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
You mentioned George Floyd. We're the ball's getting rolling here, but we're not there yet. It's before Big Brother 23 that big changes are going to be made. So here we are still with this cast that's not reflective of what Big Brother looks like today, luckily, or luckily looks like today. And then, of course, number two, the comps. We'll talk about the comps and the way that the HOHs play out over the season. But we're still very firmly in this era of all it takes is being a Cody or a Tyler to go and win every comp of the season and have everything go your way, a lot less like luck based. And even still, there were a couple of luck based ones and just also happened to not go the way of any of the underdogs. So exactly like you said, it's just certain players disappointing us that we weren't maybe expecting to come in. Like a Danny Donato is going to be like a prime example of that. You're like so excited. Danny Donato is back. And then, she's part of this big group that is going to end up steamrolling the game, not in a fun way, but as far as like looking on paper, I mean, I'll never forget seeing Kevin Campbell's picture pop up and being like, no damn way that Kevin Campbell is back here. He's on fantasy casts. We joke about the idea of Kevin Campbell coming back. He's not actually back. No way. But he was, along with all these other people. Nicole Anthony coming off of a, incredible season for her as far as her legacy being born in the game, and just like all of these other legendary names, Kaser and Janelle are back. Like there was a lot of reason for specific players to be hyped up coming into the season. It just like the year itself fell so flat and was not what anybody wanted.
Yeah. It didn't end up well, but it started well. It started well. It was exciting. And on top of that, they began sort of immediately with these like night one feeds, the live move-in, and that was exciting. And they have a couple of twists, of course, and they weren't terrible, at least to start. The safety suite was introduced fairly early on. It was a sort of voluntary competition. You could choose when you wanted to compete in the safety suite in the first 3 weeks. The winner of the safety suite competition would then be able to save themselves and one other person from eviction that week. And this was exactly the kind of like thing where there's not really a good way for the majority to game this in a way that benefits them or gives them an advantage. They might be able to shut the outsiders out, but at the very least, it's just a chance for people who feel like they might be in danger to save themselves. And that's it. And that is super helpful and ended up being very helpful in the first week. And then the addition of like choosing when you compete was also like an interesting strategic twist to the competition that allowed for different strategies and maneuvering sort of operations to happen. So it was like the twist is looking actually kind of good. The cast actually looks pretty good. We have nothing else to watch this summer. We're happy we even got a Big Brother season. I think excitement levels for Big Brother All-Stars 2 season 22 couldn't have been higher, I think. Heading into this season.
Yeah, and as we make our way to the season itself, it just couldn't have happened faster that the air was let out of the balloon with the first eviction. I mean, you go from, and like to take it like even a step back further again, casting, there was other names that were in the mix, Josh and Casey being two of like the main ones that were thought to have been on the cast. I think pretty confirmed at this point. They were pulled from the cast. Well, I guess not 100% confirmed due to medical reasons, I guess you could say. And so they end up not on the show. Memphis and Keisha do end up on the show. And so we're going to end up in this situation, of course, when Keisha goes first, that we're just like, wait a minute. The person that I think number one most excited to see back is first out. So, great twist, feeds, the show's back, but Keisha's the first one out. Keisha, all this time later, is going to end up being the first one out. That was tough. But it's definitely the Josh and Casey thing as well. And also, I remembered right before we started that Amber B, I think, was also a alternate for this season, that she almost made her way in before she ends up getting picked up by MTV to now go on to have a whole challenge career ahead of her. So I don't know if there were more names that I'm not thinking of that were left in the mix, but or left off the table, but there was just a lot going on, some good, some bad.
Yeah, and of course, rumors were swirling about pre-gaming at this time, that calls were being made, that people were being reached out to, and so we also knew that from the first All-Star season, there were a couple of people that did not do much pre-gaming, and they got destroyed. Nokomis, Allison, Danielle herself. She didn't get destroyed. But she was nominated early because
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have those connections. And so you kind of were fearful for the Keishas and Memphises of the world being alternates, being last minute cast additions. But turns out, Memphis had some other things up his sleeve. Keisha did not. And so we get into the season. First night, we have this HOH competition, and right away, Cody dominates this first HOH. And this is a more mature Cody California. This is he is somebody that I always said had a lot of promise in the game. He was a huge contributor toward the success of Derek in season 16, and ultimately was just sort of too loyal and was behind, an even better player. He came back very quickly, made it clear that he had learned from not only his mistakes, but from Derek's successes, from his own study of the show. He understood the structure that made the Bomb Squad work in season 16, and he was perfectly willing to replicate it. And on top of that, he also knew that the competitions were broken. And he knew exactly what he wanted to do heading into the game, which was put together a squad of all the competitors, pull in the relationships he does have, sort of placate the ones that he doesn't, and then just win as many comps as possible. He basically says this outright to Tyler early on, and that's the season. So thank you for joining.
Truly. Look, there's sometimes that you look at a cast or you look at a player before a season. Like Cody is a pretty prime example of this. Tashawn from BB Can Not Yet 9 is a pretty big example of this. Of just like sometimes you can just see the vision for them. You see their winning path before the game even starts. And maybe a new player like Tashawn, it's a little bit different. And I don't know that. I just feel like a lot of people had him as a winner pick. But for Cody, I mean, we saw what Cody was able to do. I think I know you, I know myself, and plenty of other people were, not leaning all the way into the narrative of like Cody's such an idiot, after BB16 and the end game there where he, could have had a different path in front of him. 16 is a different story. Coming into this season, it's like, okay, he did so much good work in Big Brother 16 that just make a couple of tweaks and this man won the game before he even showed up. Add on top that, whether or not there were conversations before the season, a lot of people speculate that there were. He had connections with so many people throughout the Big Brother community. He had been involved. He had been at events. He had been just becoming friends with so many people. As we see his social game work wonders in the house when he's playing a game, it's the same thing in real life. It seems like he is just this nice, charming guy that is like down to be friends and down like the way that he has connections with people from that he's never even met. Once he gets into the season, people just like him, and they respect him as a competitor for those who play the game that way. So he just truly, it felt like he had the game on lock and would have had to make some kind of major mistake in order to lose control throughout the game. Of course, we do see on Traders a couple of years later a different version of Cody, just one that has a little bit more pressure applied to him, different people, different game. Of course, you can't really compare the two. And we see him falter there. We also see Reindeer Games doesn't go his way. Again, completely different circumstances. So, but we've seen that he cannot have success in these games. But more often than not, I think you will find this player, Cody, to be successful in Big Brother.
I mean, this version of Cody on this season seemed like the player that you would design in a lab to win this season. Like this particular season with these competitions and this like meta game at the time that it was happening. Like he was everything that this era of Big Brother had sort of been building up to, because he represented Derek's control of alliance structure and the sort of like Jackson Mickey. He ends up tying his record. It's like level of comp dominance. And on top of that, very social and has all the connections for an All Stars season. And talking about the pregame, obviously, there's a lot that we don't know or can't know in terms of what actually happened. What we do know is that certainly Cody had, as you mentioned, some pregame relationships, like his relationship with Enzo, certainly with Nicole. We know that he had some amount of conversations with Danny, and I think some amount of connection to like Bailey to some level, I think was speculated. Some
Even
sort of
Devon,
like
I mean, just through Paulie, he was just connected
Davon through,
everywhere.
yeah. I mean, he has a lot of just connections with or without what you would, I think, label pre-gaming.
Yeah.
The other big thing here is that I think what often gets misremembered, even at the time initially, was the committee, which we will talk about very soon. The alliance, the committee. People thought, oh, that was a pre-gamed alliance. It was made in the pre-game. We know this to be pretty close to verifiably false, given what we saw on the live feeds, which is we saw the actual creation of this, throwing out names, approaching people, then backing off and approaching different people. We saw the creation of the committee happen on the feeds. That was not a pre-gamed alliance. It consisted of a lot of people who had pre-game connections. So I don't know if that distinction matters to you necessarily, but that is, I think, important to how the season plays out in terms of the structure of the committee, why it ended up working in the way that it did, and why it sort of broke out in the way that it did in the end game. So that's what we see. Cody and Memphis, who have some level of connection here. I think it's pretty tenuous. I think it's mostly just like, hey, we're both like the sidekicks, right? Like, and so they make this connection. They make an alliance called the Commission, which is the two of them, and then they want to make a bigger one called the Committee. They're throwing out names. The initial idea of the Committee is actually pretty different than the one that eventually forms. But some of the core members are, Tyler and Danny, other big known strategic players. Cody also is going to connect to Tyler pretty quickly. They also seem like they have a tenuous connection, mostly just on the fact that they're like again runner-ups, strategic players, and so they have that connection. So those are the players that Cody is drawn to. These like big kind of like competitive, sometimes bro-y, sometimes just Danny being really good at competitions, kinds of players. Enzo actually not included in the committee. Some people often forget this.
Yes.
Initially, there was some idea of pulling Bailey in. That gets scrapped by Danny, I believe. And instead, they end up pulling Christmas and Nicole. And the committee eventually forms Christmas, Cody, Danny, Memphis, Nicole, and Tyler. Enzo does not even know about the committee for quite a while. He eventually learns about it. And when people say the committee won every single competition this season, they usually include Enzo in that statistic, because even though he wasn't an official part of the alliance, he was basically part of the alliance. He just didn't know about it until like halfway through.
Yeah, the announcer voice through all of the like previously ons will constantly say the committee plus their good friend Enzo or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he was completely an unofficial member. He was aligned with so many of them, just wasn't a part of that original six. So that's really it. I mean, just talking about the comp wins that these people had throughout the entire season is Devon. No, so Devon, of course, tiny veto. Kevin wins a veto. There's I guess veto wins are a different story here, but as far as the HOH
there's
is
like
concerned,
two veto wins outside, or there one or two veto wins outside of the committee, and then every other competition
everything else
is committee plus Enzo.
Every other competition. And look, we're coming off of, these aren't the only seasons to have this kind of situation happen, but Big Brother 20, we have level 6 and be so successful. BB 21, this big alliance that, breaks apart as the season goes on, but like looks strong at the beginning. It's not a new concept concept, but it's just been successful for a lot of people early on in these seasons lately. And look, you're in an all-star season, you're going to connect with the people that you connect with and you can feel safe and secure with, even more so than a regular season, because you know these people from watching them or just from word of mouth or whatever the case is. You know them a lot better, so it's a lot easier for all of these people to stick together once they feel confident in the person that they've picked. So it's just everybody else, there's never a chance. Infamously, some RHAP lore, of course, is you and Melissa Denny on a podcast where Melissa in one of her Melissa rants was venting about the direction that the season had been going into that point, and basically saying it just feels like it's going to be, who Kaser and Janelle and Bailey and Ian and Davon and Kevin and David are all going to go, and then we're just going to be down to those players in the end game. And Taran Armstrong said, "There's no chance. That's not going to happen. There's absolutely no world that could possibly happen.
One of them will win an HOH.
There's no chance."
The cycle.
And a couple weeks later, check out one of those podcasts where Taran, I think, does admit defeat because there's
Venmoed her $100. I think.
Did you? Wow, that's how serious it was. It was just, and I get it when you said there's no chance, because of course, how could they go completely without hiccups? Look, let's point to like the 1 week that it could have gone their way. Davon versus Christmas in the final round of an HOH competition. We're like, oh, here it is. Davon's gonna win and do something different. And of course, Christmas ends up taking that home. I'll never get over it, as will a lot of other people. But that's exactly the story of the season. They win all the HOH competitions. All of the people that are not in that majority alliance are eliminated one by one. And the only thing that you have left to do, if you did not enjoy the run of the committee plus Enzo, is wait till the final 7 and just watch them lose the game one by one. Danny, Memphis, Christmas, like Tyler, just enjoying the fact that at least only one of them can actually win. That's how I experience the end game.
Yeah, and we're spending a lot of time in this first week because this is when, honestly, the vast majority of the game was played. Yes. So basically, Cody uses many of the connections that he has, and also vitally the HOH power that he has to build these alliances. One of them is the committee. The committee actually, the most tenuous of all of the alliances he creates this week. It is the most random and the least pre-gamed alliance of the structure that he creates, because he's also going to make a few other things. One is this triple threat alliance with Enzo and Tyler. That is like, I don't even remember if that was like official early on, but the three of them are a bit of a thing. Cody and Enzo hook up together. They form the root because they are the root of many other alliances, including what they call the Core Four, which is Cody, Enzo, Danny, and Nicole, who had their own kind of relationship in the pregame. Mm-hmm. Not that Nicole necessarily, like I said, planned anything in the pregame, but they had a relationship, pre-existing relationship. And then they also had the Connect, which was Cody, Enzo, and then Bailey and Davon as a 4-person alliance. And so those alliances all kind of blended into the Slick Six, which was Cody, Enzo, Tyler, Danny, Bailey, and Davon. So just a web, a network of alliances and structures put into place to make sure that Cody was covered on all sides. He also has the 4 Prime alliance that includes Ian, that is connected to Nicole, and so between all of these alliances, Cody has his fingers in nearly every pie. There's just a few people left out of this massive structure. Those people are Kaser, Janelle, Nicole Anthony, and basically like Kevin and Keisha.
David.
And kind of David, but David was attached to Tyler. And so David was somebody that he did kind of have some amount of influence on. It was really, he understood it very quickly. The biggest problem was Kaser and Janelle. He had no pregame relationship with them. And he like Kaser was not somebody that's just gonna like let somebody steamroll the game. He's gonna speak up. He's gonna fight power. And Kaser quickly became a target of Cody's in this first week. A great early person to take out so that his alliance can continue to steamroll. Unfortunately for Cody, Janelle wins this safety suite twist competition and is able to save. Or sorry, Kaser wins the
Kaser wins,
competition.
yeah.
It was that they both played in it, which they
It
should
was
not have
only the
done.
two of them. Yeah. Would you say they shouldn't have done that?
Only one of them should have played.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because the whole way that this worked was that you like went upstairs, swiped your card or whatever by the door to get into like the room that was not actually the room they competed in. And so they go up at like the last second. They're like, I think they were like hanging in the hallway up there. Should we compete? Should we not? I don't know if they had known who else may or may not have swiped their cards. So maybe that was a factor.
I think they'd been, because I remember at the time feeling like that ultimately what happened was it was just kind of like a panicked mistake. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't realize that I should have just not done it, knowing
Yeah.
that you were the only one that had gone in.
Right. It would have given them a chance the following week. Of course, the following week, we know that a lot more people are going to compete. So the chances that Janelle would have been able to win that, not 100% chance by any means, even though she is a former comp queen. But yeah, I mean, look, regardless, they get through this first week. They should not have, if this was just traditional Big Brother, if there was no twist like this, they are on the block. Even if one of them wins veto, one of them is going home first. But they're able to survive. And it's just based off this twist that just introduced a way out for the two of them.
Yes. So instead, it's going to be Keisha and Kevin that are nominated. And ultimately, as we know, Keisha is going to be the one evicted here. Just a disappointing result. A lot of people at the time were like, oh man, Keisha coming back, such a dud. I took offense to that at the time, and I will still take offense to that today. Keisha was just given no chance, no time, no anything to do anything in this game. If Allison Irwin can come back on a season and seem like she did nothing, then I think that speaks to how shut out of a game you can be when you come in early. You have no space to do anything. You have no pregame connections or relationships. And the one person that you do have a connection to from their previous season is basically looking to target you and send you out because things didn't go well with the two of you in that season. So it just was a brutal result. She does try to campaign a bit toward the end, but and there are stirrings, but it's the kind of thing that it's never going to really go anywhere.
Memphis had absolutely no loyalty to her whatsoever. I can't expect him to have, even if I would have wanted him to, just because, they were on a season together years ago. And who knows how much, if at all, they've spoken since. It didn't seem like much at all. But she gets thrown into the cast last minute. We know that she was the last, one of the last two people added along with Memphis. And it seemed like she was literally given like a week's notice that she was going to get ready. So really no chance to do any pre-gaming if she was going to at all, even if that just meant having a conversation with somebody on the phone. But I'm with you for the most part. It definitely feels like she just, she was in such a bad spot, of course. Not only was she not the first or second choice to go home that week, she's like either the third or fourth. And then she's just kind of like looking around once she's on the block, like, am I good though? Because it kind of feels like I'm okay. I have connections with people. A lot of people are telling me they want me to stay. And of course, that could be the case for a lot of other first boots that just, are made to feel comfortable. But she's looking around like, I didn't piss anybody off. I didn't say anything. I didn't say the wrong thing to the wrong person. I'm just here living my life. I don't know, like a little bit maybe of, I'm kind of a big name around here. Like maybe people will want to work with me or what. Like, I don't know if that was in play at all, but just the options on the table for her were either shake the table and risk the good spot that maybe I'm actually in, losing that spot if I'm actually safe, who knows, or just sitting still not doing anything and hoping that good spot is the reality. It just wasn't the reality. She basically gets like specifically targeted by Cody because he's just like, I don't know you, like I've heard your name once in my life and there's nothing that you can do for my game going forward, so I'm just going to make you the target because I've had a single conversation with Kevin and maybe that could be something.
Yeah, that's basically it. And that was just it for Keisha. I would say of the people, like the unfortunate thing is that like nobody's calling for Keisha to return like they were before. She was a very popular sort of cult pick for like, oh man, we'd love to see Keisha play again. And since we technically got it, you know,
Yeah.
that fervor doesn't exist quite as much anymore. I still personally feel like Keisha on a season where she actually has some room to play could be really fun. But this is likely the last we will see of Keisha. Luckily, her legacy from season 10 will live forever.
Hey, there's other shows. There's more shows than ever before. And if they're looking, to the Big Brother fan base and saying, "Who you guys got?" She's still on my list. I'm sure a lot
Mhm.
of other people's, but it's unlikely to be Big Brother again.
So Memphis wins the following HOH, and this is where like it really felt like this committee thing was just such a joke because Memphis created the committee, but he had no interest in actually working with any of the people in it to any significant degree, or like listening to them to any significant degree. Memphis, of course, known for his time on season 10 and his secret alliance with Dan Giesling called the Renegades, where they, use that secret relationship to great effect. He's doing the same thing. And I think that's part of why he was perfectly fine with Keisha leaving, which is that he was going to look for some more people to create these sort of secret bonds with. One of them was Cody. Eventually, Enzo is going to be a top pick for him. And of course, Christmas becomes one of those sort of secret down low relationships, although he does not keep that one super secret for too long.
Oh, I thought you were going to say does not keep that one in real life.
Well, that's eventually, yeah. So Memphis, the idea here for Memphis is that he should be targeting Kaser and Janelle. They are no longer safe from the safety suite, and they are the people that Cody wants out. But Memphis does not care at all what his alliance thinks. He barely will even speak to them about what he plans to do because he has his own agenda. And I actually really like this about Memphis and the way that he plays the game because despite being part of a majority alliance, he very much was just like, I'm not going to groupthink. I'm going to do what's best for me, and you're all going to have to accept it. And at the time, they were like, screw this guy. The committee thing is such a joke. We are obviously turning on him the second we get a chance to. But the reality is that by leaving Kaser and Janelle off the block, he forced the other people in the committee to deal with them first, which gave him time to reintegrate after he made that move. And ultimately, he ends up one of the longest lasting committee members in the entire alliance. So, that is not to say that that Memphis played well this season. There are plenty of mistakes, and he has these little like weird sort of fixations on certain players that I don't think are valuable for his game. One of them is with Ian, who ends up being safe from Christmas, saving him with the safety suite because she has a connection to Ian. The other, and she wants credit for saving him. The other is with David, who is just not really a problem for Memphis in any significant way.
No, it was straight up just who are you? Memphis looking at David like literally, I've never seen you in my life. It seems like Memphis maybe kind of kept up with Big Brother like a little bit, or at least studied up before he got back here. And he knew that David lasted 5 seconds on his season is by his definition not an all-star, maybe by the fans' definitions too. But Memphis decided to take it to the next level and actually confront David about the fact that like you don't belong here, Pipsqueak kind of vibes. Just like from day one, not giving him the space to even like introduce himself, not even like have a conversation with him, because he just looked at him as less than because he wasn't an actual all-star. It was very uncomfortable to watch a lot of times throughout the season because very often it became personal. And David is a fully grown adult man living life in the Big Brother house alongside you and did not do one thing to you to cause you to be acting the way that you were acting towards him. And so, yeah, it was uncomfortable to watch. It is, especially like as you get a little deeper into the season, the relationship between the two of them, it's almost like Memphis is like playing with his food, with the food being David, like along the way where Memphis is in power very often, whether through his own HOH reigns or his alliance. And so when he thinks that there's anything he can do to kind of like control David and say, look, let's, I'll keep you safe this week, blah, 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 as if like he is just God in there and David needs to listen to everything he says. And yes, again, Memphis was the one in power. David wasn't, but the way that he went about it specifically with David all season, again, uncomfortable is like the number one word for me.
Well, he ends up nominating David with Nicole Anthony this week. And ultimately it's Nicole Anthony that's going to be the person targeted and voted out. And there are a few things going on here. One of them is that she is partially being targeted by one Nicole Franzel, who is concerned that Nicole Anthony might not like her based on things she heard on a podcast.
Yes.
Or her podcast, somebody's podcast.
Yes, yeah, she was co-hosting with Eric, who I believe still covers Big Brother, and they had a podcast together. They were starting to podcast together. By BB22, she is like on her lower third. It says podcast host, rather than I think childhood educator. She might have been in BB21. She was just transitioning to doing more in the podcast world. And so they had tried to book Nicole Franzel for a podcast. I believe it didn't go well at some point, or whatever the case was, that Nicole's co-host had more of an issue with Nicole Franzel that just kind of translated into a bad relationship between the two Nicoles.
Yes.
And so
her co-host had a history with Nicole Franzel. Yeah.
There was history there. It just kind of reflected onto Nicole Anthony, and it was just general awkwardness between the two of them. I think they kind of cleared the air at one point in the house, like, hey, we're good, right? But it wasn't actually good.
Well, this is really the story of Nicole Franzel on this season, because she also is going to have a lengthy period of do I or do I not trust Devon based on their history in season 18.
Yes.
But we'll get to that, of course. The other thing going on with Nicole Anthony is that she just gets turned around and flipped sideways this week. She is convinced that Janelle and Kaser have put her in this position, and she is going to be talking all sorts of smack about them. And it's like, ooh, when she did this to Jax and Mickey, it was good. But when she's wrong about Janelle, eek.
Yeah, look, we're sitting at home watching this dominant alliance form, looking like, okay, already feeling that Melissa vibe of like, are they going to dominate the whole game, even though it's only week 1 or week 2? Just like needs some kind of hope that won't be the case. And when you have everybody that's on the outs, especially being led by like, maybe not everyone still loves Janelle, but like general fan favorite legend of Big Brother Janelle. And Nicole should be a number on Janelle's side. They are not in the majority. They are both looking for anyone to work with. And Nicole would just be sitting on feeds being like, well, why hasn't Janelle talked to me today? Why won't Janelle, why she doesn't want to work with me? She's not voting with me. She's not going to vote for me. Just like all of the paranoia set in the worst possible way, directed at the completely wrong person / people. It was mostly at Janelle, but like just the Janelle Kaser general vibe of like feeling like they were not there for her when they very much were.
Basically, what was happening was your classic scenario where Kaser and Janelle were kind of the only two people with their eyes open in this first part of the season. They had been targeted in the first week. They had just enough of a connection to know that something was going on. They were trying to, or Tyler was trying to work with them, but they did not think they could trust Tyler because he was too close to Cody, which was a good instinct. But the reality was, we know that Tyler actually didn't want to work with Cody that much. He would have preferred to work with Kaser and Janelle, but it was just this kind of situation where they couldn't trust that angle. And so instead they thought like, let's do what has worked for us in the past. Like, let's, instead of trying to work with like one of Cappy's goons, why don't we form a new Sovereign Six? And so they turned to Nicole Anthony and Kevin and all of these people on the outside that they were like, let's band together and make something happen. And unfortunately for them, Cody specifically, but even some of the other people in the alliance, very experienced with knowing how to demonize the resistance. And so when Kaser and Janelle are trying to stir people up, like, we need to fight back, Cody and his structure are able to paint them as the agitators. It's their fault that you're getting into trouble here because they're the ones that said that you were trying to fight back. And instead of Nicole's ire being focused in the correct direction at the people in power, it was focused on the scapegoats that were created by those people in power. And it was just, it was a bad look. And she goes out in a disappointing second boot.
It's just an incredible fall from grace for such a fan favorite. Like, people were throwing tomatoes at their TV screens, at their computer screens. Like, you go from like the love and joy reception that she got after BB21, again, as like a light in the darkness of that season, to like, people were worried for her getting back on her phone, rational people that weren't going to be sending like death threats and hate mail, because of course it was frustrating to watch that. But you know how some people can be. And so when she was about to leave, I was definitely worried. I was like, it's not going to be pretty, and bad gameplay, of course, we know doesn't deserve, death threats. So it was worrisome when she was leaving the house. Again, big fall from grace. I think she seems like she's good now. Life seems to be going well. But we definitely haven't heard from her in the Big Brother world since then. So it was just, I think, probably a tough reality to set back in of like, oh, damn, I really messed that one up.
Yeah, I mean, it was essentially like the Paul trajectory, only without the success of the second season, right?
Yeah.
Like fan favorite or close to it on her first season. She comes back and it finds out that she is now kind of hated coming out of her second season.
Almost couldn't have gone worse.
Yeah, really, really. The following week, it's do or die for Kaser and Janelle. They need to win something to turn this around. And oh boy, Janelle comes close. But Tyler just edges her out in the little table throwing thing competition.
The mugs sliding across the table. Yeah.
And it's especially tragic because Tyler does not want to target Kaser or Janelle this week, but finds himself in the precarious position of like, I have to choose a side here at this point. And I've been trying with Janelle and Kaser and it has not been working. Who knows what would have happened if they had sort of bought into Tyler earlier. Again, I think it's important to point out that like Tyler was having these conversations about working with Janelle and Kaser, and he meant it. Cody was having the exact same conversations with Kaser and Janelle, and he did not mean it. He was trying to trap them. So they successfully sussed out that Cody was not trustworthy, that he had too much power elsewhere, and that by buying into what he was selling, they would just be enabling him like some other players were at the time. Unfortunately, they had the same or a similar read of Tyler, and the reality was Tyler wasn't quite the player that I think a lot of people expected him to be coming into season 22. And he really was trying to play with other people, which actually does track to how he played season 20.
Oh, yeah.
Season 20. It just didn't feel that way because they dominated, especially in the end game. But I think that it was just, he's a tough guy to read, and they just didn't buy into it, and so the relationship never was able to solidify. And Tyler essentially said, "All right, I give up, hands up. I'm not Memphis. I'm not going to pull a Memphis. I'm going to do what the Alliance needs me to do." And he put up Kaser and Janelle, and they sent out Janelle.
Yeah, I mean, look, if this is a good spot to start talking about Tyler, I mean, he is, of course, one of the bigger names, the biggest possible names that we could get coming into this All-Star season. And as the story goes, his head wasn't there. His head wasn't in it. He is, missing Angela. Angela's back home, and they are fully, in a relationship now, 2 years after their show, and them finding each other in the house and whatnot. And will they, won't they at the end of the game? And so he's missing her. He just doesn't know. Look, life is also weird at this time. Of course, it's COVID. Like, there's a lot going on.
He also, it should be noted, came in with a pre-game alliance, expecting to be working with Casey and Josh, who he basically like shows up to the house and they're not there. And it's just like,
Christmas
Well,
is there, but that's not the alliance. That's not the plans. And
right.
that alliance that he would have had would have been great for him. He still ended up in an okay alliance that takes him far into the game. But the battle of like waiting for Tyler versus Cody to like come to a head throughout the entire season. One of them is going to win out, and that person probably wins the game in most scenarios, as long as Tyler gets his head back on straight. And for a good amount of the beginning of the game, we were wondering, is he going to? This week was a good week to kind of have himself figure that out. And we're going to get into the next couple of weeks where even more stuff is going on with Tyler that has you questioning what the hell he's up to this season. But yeah, like you mentioned in Big Brother 20, of course, a lot of the extra pieces that he had, the Caitlins, the JCs, the Sams, were not part of his alliance. But the reason that his alliance is so successful in that season is because he has all these extra connections that are extra votes every single week that help them get the job done that they want to get done. And so here it's like, okay, maybe I can do some of that again. Janelle and Kaser, they have nobody. I could be that person, but there really was just no way around the fact that all of his alliance wanted them gone. And at a certain point, it's like you're sticking your neck all the way out for the two of them that like everyone's going to group you in with them if you tie yourself to them at this point. This is not Big Brother 20. It's a very different vibe, very different cast. And so he just had to make the decision. And I ultimately would say he made the right one. If he ties himself to the two of them and pulls, I don't think there's a world that he can pull off what Memphis did the week before. I don't know why Memphis got away with it to the point that he did, of saying,
I
somebody
think
else will
it's
have to take care of
partly
it.
his personality. He
It
just seems
is.
like a cantankerous old
Yeah,
man.
like,
And
right.
so it's almost like, yeah, it's
It's
Memphis.
just the confidence that he walks around with, which is
Yeah.
like a credit to him as a player in the Big Brother house, that no one's actually going to come up to you and question you. But Tyler would have had people questioning him, whether to his face or probably more likely behind closed doors. And that would have been disastrous.
Yep. Yeah, and that means that we lose Janelle this week, not to be her return to Big Brother after a disappointing season 14. We get sort of another. Honestly, I would say she has a better showing in season 22 than she does in season 14. But they are both relatively disappointing in comparison to the golden age of Janelle in season 6 and 7. And there's not much more to say. She was literally a star.
She was certainly a star, knocked over some glasses in her big giant star costume, glasses of wine or something that she had knocked over. I'm like, that's on you, production. You gave her this giant outfit to walk around in. It was disappointing for anybody that was like looking for the legends, because she's the oldest school, her and Kaser, the oldest school players in the game. There's no one
Oh,
from
by
seasons,
far.
yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you're looking for the old school picks, it was Janelle and Kaser. We know we're about to get to Kaser elimination next. So, interesting to when we get to Kaser next, that he is in the house without Janelle for a little bit, but it just, the writing was on the walls from day one that Janelle wasn't going to have a chance in this season. The Janelle and Nicole Franzel feud that stemmed from some IRL stuff was interesting to watch along the way. And at one point does give us one of the more fun blow-ups in the beginning of the game, where Janelle is kind of just like had enough of Nicole. She's been trying to play nice. There's like the whole thing that Nicole invited Janelle to her wedding, and then Janelle wasn't going to go, and it was just like a lot of mess that was I think before the season, and during the live feeds we were hearing a little bit about it. And at one point, like I think it was after this nomination ceremony, that she confronts Nicole like in the living room in front of everybody else, just like, oh, knock it off, Nicole, like we all know what you're doing, blah blah blah. But of course, again, we know the story plays out where Nicole is going to be just fine as we get deeper into the season, and Janelle, her run ends here.
Yes, and we also saw on the live feeds that there was a lot going on with Danny at this time as well.
Yeah.
That Danny was like really specifically targeting Janelle, but sort of like pretending like she wasn't to Janelle's face. And it
The new queen
became
brother.
right,
Gonna take the
and
title.
it became clear that that something had gone on in the pregame, and that Danny was basically turning on Janelle. Janelle has since, I believe, confirmed that that is the case. That they were where they were talking in the pregame, and that Danny was basically playing her the whole time, or at the very least, when she got into the game, decided to go against Janelle. And was a huge part of like sort of poisoning the well anywhere Janelle tried to go.
Yep.
But yes, ultimately this is going to be it for Janelle, and we head into a do or die HOH competition for Kaser, where he almost wins, but of all people, Enzo beats him out.
And
And
And you think like maybe like look, we were watching like the Memphis will he won't he with Kaser and Janelle. Will he give them a chance? Will he give them a lifeline? And he does by not sending them out the door. You know, when you're looking at the older school players, Memphis is much closer to them than he is to anybody that he's actually going to play the game with. And so at this point, you're like maybe Enzo will feel somewhat similar and throw Kaser. No chance. Everybody wanted Kaser out. Like at this point, it's like how has Kaser survived 4 weeks? They're all desperate for him to go, and Enzo had to do it.
I mean, in many ways, Enzo was one of the worst people to win this one because he had so many connections and people that would expect him to put up other people. And so he had to go with the people that were the least connected, that he would piss off the least amount of people. And that, of course, was Kaser and Kevin at the time. He eventually is going to get Christmas to go up on the block after Kevin wins that veto, one of the very few that is won by anyone outside of the committee structure. And that's just it for Kaser. There's not really much he can do here. By now, all of the other outsiders are dead in the water. In fact, there's so few outsiders left that they're starting to turn some of the insiders into the new outsiders. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to get that turn for Devon and Bailey at this point. So it's just far too late for anything to be done to save Kaser.
And where Kaser like frustrated, at least me at the time. And look, you know, how like who of us was not watching, rooting for Kaser just in general as the legend that this man is in the show and still today. But it was just like him, like Bailey, Devon, these people that were on the outs that like every week they would start to count up the votes. Well, maybe we can get this person. Maybe we can get that person. Like, no, you can't. How have you not seen through 4 different weeks now that you don't have any of these people on your side, zero chance to get them on your side? I don't know what it would have ever possibly taken. Probably nothing that was going to work to get them out of this danger other than winning a veto and saving yourself or winning an HOH and completely shaking up the structure. But it was just so frustrating. I mean, of course, I don't blame him for trying, for thinking through all the ideas, but it was just like a lot of the conversations that they were having were like based around the idea of, well, maybe this time we can get this person's vote. It was just never going to happen.
It was nice to see that after all these years, Kaser hadn't lost his sort of like fire for, you know, rousing speeches against the people in power and trying to gather people to his cause. It's not Kaser that failed us. It's us that failed Kaser.
His exit speech as he is leaving the house, he calls out specifically like Cody, Nicole, maybe Dan, I don't know if it was Danny, but just like make some comments on his way out, which was a fun way to let him go if we had to see him go at some point. So yeah, tough stuff.
Yes. So while all this has been happening, turmoil within the power structure, almost necessary turmoil though, because as we just described, most of the outsiders are gone and it's just the structure left. So the question becomes, who do you start to turn on? And the relationships formed within the structure start to dictate that. So one of the primary things being Devon and Bailey have been in this, Connect alliance with Enzo and Cody. They've started to realize that Cody is doing some other things, but they've been fine with it. And frustratingly for me, they've been saying, well, we'll throw one more comp this week because we're not going to be the ones in danger. And I've been like, you're going to be in danger soon, they'll win. But the unfortunately for them, the person that they have been trusting has been Enzo for so long. Like Cody might be double dealing, but we know we've got Enzo. In addition to that, they have some amount of relationship with some other players like Ian to some degree, but it's off and on whether they can trust him. Throughout this week, they're starting to recognize some things. And there's a lot of drama that happens with David because David is connected to Tyler. Tyler still not bought into. Tyler never was committee strong. He hated the committee. He wanted any reason to get out of it. He was trying to work with Bailey and Devon. He was trying to work with David. He was trying to work with Danny at one point. The problem is he was just bad at it. He's just bad at working with any of these people, and it gave them very good reason to not trust him. And unfortunately for all of them, this kind of comes to a head when David tells Bailey and Devon about like part of what Tyler's doing, and they confront him. David then tells Tyler, "I just strategized you out," and then Tyler has to go do damage control, and it kind of damages that connection, that relationship. In the meantime, there's also sort of a Cold War happening between Danny and Tyler that Tyler is completely unaware of for a while, and eventually starts to discover. Weirdly enough, it's Danny that helps connect Tyler back to Devon by telling to Bailey and Devon by telling them like, "Hey, Tyler's actually speaking really highly of you," and they're like, "Oh, if this is coming from Danny, it must be true." So there's just a lot going on here, but the end result of it is, of course, this is Devon. Like she recognizes what's happening. The thing we love about Devon the most is that she's good at seeing things. She just doesn't always make the right decision with that information. And unfortunately for her and Bailey, they were waiting quite a while to make any kind of move here. And this all kind of comes to his head this week. Devon again nearly wins this HOH, and things could have been very different if she had, because she would have been in a position of power to be able to do some things. But throughout the week leading up to this, there were a lot of situations. We talked about this a lot. Like Devon would talk to Bailey, and she'd be like, "Yeah, I don't think they're loyal to us anymore. Why don't we do this to test them, to see if they're loyal to us?" And like those little tests did not go unnoticed, and just gave more ammunition to turn on them. And so when Christmas ultimately beats out Devon in this HOH competition, the reticle is set firmly onto to Devon and Bailey. But that is not the end of this drama.
No, that's quite possibly only the beginning. It's just one of the worst weeks to watch. You've already gotten down to a point of, okay, this alliance is going to steamroll, and now they've already taken out a lot of faves for a lot of people. But like, look, a lot of us are watching Bailey and Devon. Like, come on. We can make something happen this season. Maybe they actually weren't feeling that hope. I wasn't like the most optimistic, but like, come on, you're still in it. Things have been going well. Like Devon is going to say, kind of for different reasons throughout the course of what happens next. She talks about because a big blow up is going to happen. And Devon says they've all been waiting for this moment. They've been waiting for me to explode. They've been waiting for me to lose it. And that's exactly right. Like 100% on the nose.
From night one,
yes.
It was, we can't include Bailey in the alliance because Bailey and Devon will obviously be a duo, and we'd have to include both of them.
Right. They've been waiting. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've been waiting the whole game for a reason to separate Devon and Bailey from the rest of the group and make them the new outsiders, like you were just saying. So now that Janelle and Kaser are gone, a lot of other outsiders are gone. Okay, Kevin and David are still around. Like you've said, David's still, kind of tied into Tyler or whoever. But Bailey and Devon, like if nothing else, especially as like some people are going to notice, maybe they're connected to Danny, who like, can we trust Danny all the way? And so with this Christmas HOH, of course, what starts the downfall here, or this insane drama of the week, is Christmas talks to Bailey, and they have a conversation where Bailey explains to Christmas that Devon is her untouchable. She's trying to also ask Christmas, who is your untouchable, saying, let's work together. You don't come after Devon. I won't go after whoever you say your untouchable is. And we can stick together going deep into the game. Christmas takes this information, which she already knew that Devon and Bailey were close, but now that Bailey has verbally confirmed it to her, says, I'm going to target, says to herself and to her allies, I'm going after Bailey and Devon because Bailey told me from her own mouth that her and Devon, that Devon is her untouchable. She will never go after her in this game. And that's always going to put Devon ahead of me in her lineup for people that she's going to look out for. And that's a problem for me. So where, many other people would look at that opportunity to say, oh, like two people are going to be looking out for me. Christmas just said, you know what? I've been waiting to go after these two. I don't have a good relationship with them. And I'm going to do it in a way that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about me, Christmas Abbott, as a player of Big Brother. Everything that I do is lacking grace and lacking tact, and it shows why I could never win this game. And so it's just a mess. There's fights, there's drama, there's yelling, and chaos.
Yes, the personal game information argument happens here. Uh, I think kind of thought of as one of the last like big arguments to be on Big Brother, because the feeds start cutting around the argument, but we still saw a good amount of it.
Yeah.
Then, as the season progresses, we don't really start to see anything anymore. Anytime voices are raised, anytime there's any kind of argument, we're not seeing it. And in subsequent seasons, the most we get are like some of the more tame arguments, and typically the feeds are going to go down for anything that goes above a certain level of tame. And so I think this is often remembered as like, oh, that was the one. That was the argument that kind of broke production, seemingly. So that happens. It of course ends up with Bailey and Davon on the block together. And this is when, again, the feeds start cutting all over the place, when Tyler, kind of out of nowhere, says, Christmas, put me up. Put me up. I don't want this to happen to Bailey. I don't want I don't want this to be the way that this happens, that this goes down. Just put me up, send me home in her place. And this is, I think, to this day, a fairly confusing set of circumstances. A lot of this was cut from the feeds, so we still don't fully know what happened here. I don't think Tyler talked about it. I think he's talked on some podcasts recently. Maybe he's explained a bit more of it, although I doubt he wants to talk about it too much. But basically, this is when we sort of realized, oh, this is definitely not the Tyler we thought we had seen. Leading up to this point, there was a bit of a war happening between Tyler and Cody for Enzo's loyalty. Cody ends up beating, and it seemed as though Tyler was actually winning. Because Enzo was kind of being pushed into doing things he didn't want to do because he had his own relationships. Tyler was able to capitalize on that. He was kind of pulling Enzo away. And it's this week that things really start to get super messy with Tyler. Cody ends up beating Enzo to the punch and finally revealing the committee to him. And Tyler loses all control of Enzo. Tyler's also been working on Christmas for a long time, really reeling her in, having a secret relationship with her that could be proved to be very, very valuable. However, when he volunteers to be nominated by her, she loses all faith in him as a player and retreats instead to Memphis. This is basically when Tyler flips up the table and gives away all of his chips. And for the rest of this game, he's going to be kind of just like coasting to a slow demise.
And because underneath it all, as we were talking about earlier, he misses Angela. He wants to go home. And maybe not like is dying to go home. If he really was, he would have left. But there's a lot of people talking about, or specifically Tyler talking about, if we don't leave right now, this is when jury starts. And I'm going to be away for even longer. I'm going to be away from home, from my loved ones, from Angela, even longer. There's so much more going on, of course, throughout this season in real life going on. And so with just like all the movements that are happening, and Tyler has this conversation with Bailey and Davon, and specifically says to them, because Bailey and Davon are discussing more often than they should have to, of course. They're having conversations with Kaser about these important conversations in the world, and their alliance, I don't know if the official name was Black Girl Magic, but like
I believe it was.
Yeah, I think so. And so Tyler's like, look, I get it. Like, I understand that you two are here for a bigger purpose, and you're going to work together, have each other's backs, and I love what you guys are standing for, and I appreciate that, and you want to be here for that reason more than I do right now. I think that's pretty clear. Like, he's thinking about just how he doesn't have his head all the way in the game. Everything that you just laid out, his head is spinning in circles from what's going on outside of the game that he doesn't have the most control over. And I mean, take it back another level. Tyler and Bailey and the history that they have, the massive blow up that they had in Big Brother 20, and now they're both here in the house with a second chance, a chance to rewrite their history between the two of them. And up until this point, they've been doing well. They've been playing nice. And after Tyler leaves the room from telling Bailey and Davon that he is basically willing to go out of the game for them and give them another chance, when it seems like, by all accounts, one of the two of them is leaving this week on Christmas's HOH, they're just like, there's no way, right? Like, absolutely cannot believe that this would be a real possibility. But also, that's not something you joke about, Tyler. Like, that's not something that you mess with us about. You don't just come in here and like use that to give us false hope. Like, there's no way that he could be doing that. So they kind of have to believe that it's a real possibility that it could happen. And over the course of the next like day or two, whatever it was, a couple things, continue to happen. Davon talks to Christmas, and maybe like that gets a little bit tricky. At least that's how it's portrayed in the episodes. But then Tyler talks to Christmas as well. And Christmas is just not down for this idea. She's like, if you want to leave this,
send home one of her allies on her own HOH just because
she's like, if you want to leave,
Yeah.
you'll have to leave on your own. I'm not changing my plans this week. And so it ultimately doesn't happen, but it's so ugly the way that it goes down. And, it is reflected on Tyler for the fact that he offered, and now he's still in the game going forward, and Bailey's not. We do get a funny Bailey moment out of all of this, where she turns to the camera. I don't know if this was on the episode or just the feeds. I think it was on the episode too, where she's like pissed at Tyler. She's like, after all said and done, he didn't actually do what he said he was going to do. And she's like, you know what? Screw it. Yeah, I'm glad I turned the jury against you. Little Angela had to sell her Range Rover. That's right, because you didn't win the game. You lost all that money. And she's just like reveling in the fact that she single-handedly made Tyler lose Big Brother 20. And so I don't know where they are today, but in this moment, it was just a lot happening. A very unfortunate way for Bailey to go, which, by the way, not to mention, as Bailey's on the screen here, was playing so well. She was getting her 7s and 8s and whatever in the stock watch. She was just like playing really good Big Brother. We said, maybe with a new cast, a new show, a new season, she could do well. And she was. And then it all just came falling apart here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there were a couple of main problems for Bailey. One of them was this notion of like, let's just be throwing comps, just playing a little too passively. And then of course, like another major factor that shouldn't go unsaid, which is that, as we mentioned, she would have been included in the committee, but was vetoed because they said, well, we can't include her if we are not including Davon. And on top of all the other, things that she has to deal with as a Black woman in the house when she's one of two Black women in the house. So, I still feel to this day that Bailey, despite some mistakes, certainly in season 20 and a couple in season 22, I think she has an incredible social game and a decent mind for strategy, and could be quite a killer on a season. But I don't think she has a desire to come back to Big Brother at this point. I think she's just like living it up with Swaggy.
Yeah, they both popped into a challenge season, and it kind of felt like that could have been like a closing of the chapter for the two of them, and they're doing fine as far as we can tell. Life seems to be okay over there, so I don't know that it would be healthy for either of them to come back, because it just obviously every time they showed up to a reality show, they just something went wrong in a way that didn't seem like it was good for their mental well-being, and that's for themselves to decide. But just from where we were sitting, a lot of uncomfortable moments, both on BB20 and BB22 for Bailey especially, and that's just the problem. I mean, and we're still in a pre big the casting initiative world, where they're going to make sure that there's 50% Black, Indigenous, people of color in the house, and so when you're in this era beforehand, it's just like, I mean, go back to so many other seasons before these seasons, and Davon, of course, a big advocate for just like making sure everybody understood their experience in the house along the way, where it's like everything is going fine by all accounts, like they should be in a good spot, but everyone's just looking at Bailey and Davon, waiting for something to change within their games so that they can then be targeted. And Bailey's like, all of a sudden, like now everyone's looking at me funny, and they have to contend with that, again, just because of who they are coming into the game. So it was tough. And Bailey going out pre-jury here was not by any means indicative of how she was playing that game so far. Like you said, she is a very solid social player. Disappointing that it ends this way for her, and how it's about to end for Devon a couple of weeks later, even if, like you said, Devon makes her mistakes along the way. But I would love to see Devon in a house today. I think it's a possibility at some point soon, or some point in the future.
That would not surprise me. Yeah, that would not surprise me. I think also, like, we talked about like the janky cast photos, but I think Bailey probably by far has the best one.
Ate it up. This photo if you're not watching the video, if you haven't seen Bailey's cast photo, she got ready. She heard cast photo. She said, okay, life photo.
Yeah. All right. So Danny wins the next HOH, but before we get into what she does, we have to explain another thing that happened during Christmas's HOH, which is the Big Brother basement twist, where 3 players ended up winning powers. The other 2 really don't matter. The only one that does is David's disruptor power, which is going to allow him to save a nominee from being evicted. And of course, what that means is when Danny wins the next HOH and decides to nominate him, she can't, because the disruptor power comes in and saves him anonymously. So of course the question becomes, who saved me? Mm-hmm. Was it you, Matt? Did you save me? Did you do that? In what is probably the most humorous aftermath of a power use, he is going to pretend it wasn't him, and not a single soul in that house believes it.
It is so funny. David's like probably best moments on reality TV here, from where we're sitting just looking for entertainment out of this man. He just convinces himself that he can pull this off, that no one is going to suspect that it was actually him, because if I just act like I have no idea where it came from, who saved me, I don't know. He gets the waterworks going. Now remember, from Big Brother 21 into 22, his whole thing is I can cry on cue, I can
Part
cry
of what
on
got
demand.
him cast.
Yes. And so he uses that here to his full advantage. He gets the waterworks going because he is just in disbelief that his life has been saved here, and who possibly could have done it. Now, why did he need to do this? He didn't, but it was still great. Great to watch.
And this actually does cause some drama, because Danny, as I've mentioned, has been in this cold war with Tyler. Now, by this point in the season, Tyler had managed to kind of turn things back around on Danny. However, then he had his whole moment with Christmas, and he's now lost most of that social capital. However, while Danny had been distracted with Tyler, she kept her eye off of the real threat, which was Cody. Yes. And she really felt she could trust Cody. Meanwhile, he was basically using her feud with Tyler to pull out every ally from Danny and pull them over to him. Most notably, of course, being Nicole Franzel, who came into this season wary of Cody, willing to work with him, but certainly would work with him, but was much more closely aligned with Danny. However, over the course of the season, Cody was able to slowly sort of like peel her fingers off of the grasp on Danny and take her hand in his instead. And a large part of that comes through this week. Danny, so focused on Tyler, she really wants to take a shot at Tyler here. And it's largely Cody that is going to say, it's not the time. We can't do Tyler right now. It doesn't make sense. David and Kevin is kind of a good compromise for them, because at this point, Cody is looking at Ian, because while he's had a connection to Ian for a while, and he has sort of a little bit of control via Nicole, it's become clear that Ian, after sort of sitting out the whole game to this point, kind of waiting it out so that he can kind of comp out in the end, which is what he did in his first season, is starting to realize that maybe I have been helping enable a structure that is going to crush me. And he started to tell some people about it, and it's becoming clear that Ian could end up being a problem. He's not a problem for Danny, but he is a problem for Cody. And so Cody's trying to push in that direction, but Danny doesn't bite. She really wants to do Tyler, but she says, essentially the compromise is David and Kevin. However, when David is saved in the moment, of course, her default backup person is Tyler. And so Tyler ends up on the block with Kevin. Danny tries to explain it away like, oh, I didn't know what to do. But this only, of course, further fuels the fire for Tyler to get back into the game to take out Danny. In the meantime, Devon ends up winning a veto, the tiny veto.
One of the most liked tweets that has ever existed on Big Brother's internet, the BB Updates tweet that said, Devon has won the power of veto. People had it framed. And we, I don't know, I feel like it's bad on my part to not like ask you or Sam to include this in the slideshow here with us on YouTube, because that tweet is just iconic. Devon had not won a competition on Big Brother up until this point, and she wins her veto. She wins a competition, and it's the tiny veto from this day forward. It is Devon's tiny veto.
And it's a crucial one because given the state of the house right now, there are basically 4 people who are not in the main power structure. Herself, Ian, David, and Kevin. And Ian is the one who has been entrenched the most in the power structure. He's in multiple alliances with Cody, with Nicole, and with Tyler now at this point. And so there was a huge reason to believe that Ian, a shot at Ian is essentially a shot at the structure. Ian is one of the lowest people on their sort of power structure list, but he's certainly still sort of included in that group. So when David is safe via the disruptor power, and then Devon, who is not on the block, is able to win this veto, she can now use it to save Kevin and force the power structure to shoot at themselves. Because with Tyler on the block, that was like, oh, Danny put Tyler on the block. Yes, but they weren't planning to vote him out. They were planning to vote out Kevin. And so when Devon wins this veto, all of a sudden it's like, well, this is why you shouldn't have nominated Tyler, Danny, because now we're forced to nominate one of our own. We have 2 of our own on the block, which is, potentially disastrous for a big alliance. And so, of course, they try to convince Devon to not do this through the usual tactics of majority. You're going to piss everyone off. You're going to last one more week if you do this. All of the sort of implications and things that you try to do to bully someone out of using a power to help save themselves or their allies. And Devon basically says, nah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because screw you guys. In a phenomenal display of willpower, I would say. It doesn't exactly help her position in the game, unfortunately, as she's going to be evicted the following week. But it is the one and only moment of resistance in the entire season.
And it's just the only thing that she can do at that point.
Yeah, it's not like she would have stayed if she hadn't used the veto. It's not like she left because she used the veto.
No, she's not making it 3 or 4 weeks longer than she did if she doesn't end up using it. You could say, okay, it gave her, it gave everybody else the reason, the go ahead to put her and Kevin up on the block and specifically then switch the target around to make Devon go earlier. Okay, so she goes home a week earlier than she would like. There's just no world where the rest of the game was going to play out in her favor at that point, and she saw the writing on the walls. The second that Bailey was gone, she saw the writing on the walls, if not even earlier, that this wasn't going to be a season that ends well. Of course, she had some hope in Nicole. There's still some semblance of a relationship there, and she's trying to see if there's anything still there with Danny, who is lying to her face since day one, that she can trust her, and that's not actually the case. But what else does Devon have at this point besides knowing that Kevin is in her corner for sure, and David? We haven't even really gotten into Devon and David like too in depth, but it's bad. It's bad all season long. It's going to be especially bad after this week is about to be, yes. I guess, the time that comes up. And so she has one person at this point that has now Kevin has kind of slotted into this Bailey role of like, this is my new number one. I don't want him to go home this week. I won my first veto. I'm using it, and I support it. I will always support that.
Yes, and the end result is that Danny will now have to choose a replacement. And once again, she doesn't want to do Ian. she would love to put I don't even remember who she was going to, but basically put somebody on the block so that they could vote out Tyler. Was the idea. Like,
Probably like a
listen,
Christmas
Cody,
or something. Yeah.
it might have been Christmas. It was basically like, listen, Cody, I agreed to not do Tyler the first time, but then David was saved. Now this whole situation with the veto, like, surely now we do Tyler. And Cody said, sure, that's a great idea. What if I stay up late in the HOH room with you for a while and let's just talk? Let's just shoot some stuff about strategy for a little while. And he spends the night convincing her that that Ian is the right person to put up. Not even with, like, I would say, solid logic for Danny, more so just like sort of kind of using the Tyler method, actually, of just, I'm going to smother you with the relationship that we have and my strong desire for this to happen, and you're kind of going to just agree with me because you want to, and that's ultimately what happens here. That Danny is going to put up Ian, and this is really, I think, the game-winning move for Cody outside of setting the structures up in the first place, because this is what solidifies, number one, taking down Ian, who is a threat to Cody's game. Ian, who dominated competitions in season 14, certainly a threat to win the competitions in this season. However, unfortunately for Ian, competitions have changed and they have become more physical and less skill-based, like the ones he was able to win in his season. So while he is not quite as much of a threat, he still remains a threat to Cody's game. Somebody who, if he did get power, would likely be able to and willing to just take all kinds of big shots and, you know, mess things up. In addition to that, Ian was useful for a player like Nicole, who had enough power of her own. Cody is able to take Ian out of the game, essentially get Danny to take the blame for it, especially with Nicole, who is not super happy about the move in the first place. And so causing a bit of a feud between the two of them, and then therefore being able to scoop up Nicole, as we talked about, removing her loyalty from Danny, moving it to him, and in the meantime also just taking out any semblance of resistance left in the game from anybody else in the house. And so this is, I believe, this is when this is around the time I tweeted something along the lines of like, oh man, I can't believe Cody managed to win this many HOHs in a row, because ultimately Danny's HOH was entirely Cody's. In fact, it worked out better than if it had been Cody's himself. And so with the votes they needed, they were able to take down Ian and keep Tyler in the game. But it got trickier than even that, which, again, only further played into Cody's hand and kept Tyler locked to him in how reliant Tyler was on Cody by this point to even survive in the game. So the votes are tricky here. It is there are 8 votes, and so you needed, theoretically you needed 5 to not have a tie, or you could have 4 and Danny would break the tie. But Danny really wanted to take out Tyler and did not want to break a tie to evict Ian. She really did not want to do that. And so you had Cody and Enzo, Christmas and Memphis, easy votes for Ian to go. But then, because you had all of those other people off the block, you had David, you had Kevin, and you had Davon, all potential votes to take out Tyler. Now, David had this relationship with Tyler, but it had been quite rocky throughout this time. And he was promising Davon he was willing to go with her to vote out Tyler. She was skeptical, but was willing to say, like, okay. In addition to that, they thought they'd have Nicole, because Nicole was working with Ian very publicly. This was a little bit like her parachute alliance, a distraction for her true loyalties. And so, and she also genuinely didn't want Ian to go. What is Tyler to Nicole? Ian is way more valuable to her. Obviously, she'd want to keep Ian in the game. And so with all 4 of their votes, at least, plus Danny saying, yeah, I'll break the tie to evict Tyler. Sure, because she doesn't expect there to be a tie. It fell onto Nicole to be the one to prevent a tie from happening and flip her vote to evict Ian. And this is messy in so many ways. It's mad.
Especially, I guess, because of the David and Davon relationship to this point, that like David is on such thin ice with Davon. Yep. There's been such lack of trust there throughout their season together. And it's particularly tough because it just felt like there was some kind of understanding that the two of them would stick together. And every time that Davon feels like David has betrayed her, whether it's based on a vote or just based on lack of trust in the game, David's saying something to someone that Davon might have said in confidence, just feeling uneasy about their relationship in the game together. It was tough for them to navigate that. And Davon really wanted to try to make it work, but it just wasn't naturally clicking to, very well for the two of them. And so when this vote goes down, and of course, then you bring in the Davon and Nicole relationship where Davon was the winning vote for Nicole to win Big Brother and all the money that goes along with it. And Davon has held on to that for, however long it's been, as far as like, realizing that she did such an important thing for Nicole, but their relationship had been rocky over the years during the season and after. And so like, this is their chance to make things right. And Nicole feels like she understands that. She doesn't want to betray Davon again this time around. If she can help it, she would love to have a good relationship with her. And she knows that she feels like Davon cast the vote that mattered the most for her in that game. And so we get to this point where, by all means, Nicole should be keeping Ian in the house. Nicole had Ian so good as her close ally, as the two winners were sticking together, and it seemed like a good idea, a good thing that was working for the two of them. But Nicole being closer to Cody and just you mentioned all of the Cody influence that he has over Danny, and I'll get more into Danny when it's her time to go, because there's a lot more to get into. I don't know, for my feelings on how she played a lot of it, but to this point, putting Ian up, this is a perfectly fine move for Danny at the end of the day, to separate Nicole from somebody else that is a big option for her going forward in the game. If Ian can comp out, he takes Nicole deep into the game, and Ian doesn't need Danny. They weren't as close as a lot of other people, as Danny perceived herself to be with other people in the game. So Tyler, Ian, kind of at the end of the day, especially with Cody's influence, sure, one of them going still helps my game in some way. Of course, we're going to end up seeing the downfall of Danny's game very, very soon. But just the way that this plays out, with Nicole ultimately ending up deciding to vote Ian out, and staying loyal to what Danny ultimately did want at the end of the week, right? She wanted Ian to go, I think, based on Cody's influence and whatnot. And so here we have a vote where it seems like it was Nicole, Kevin, and Davon that voted Tyler out, and Ian was voted out by Nicole's vote. And so Davon and David are just going to argue. And look, we're still at a point where the steamroll is no end in sight. So Davon and David and Kevin are about to get run over. So the fact that they can't get on the same page, I don't know. Does it make a difference at this point? They don't win power, but even if they did, I wouldn't want to know what that would look like, of one of them nominating each other at that point. It's unfortunately a possibility that could have happened.
This, of course, is the famous moment where Nicole is going to go into the diary room to vote, and sort of like, despite the fact that we know that she's been prepping for this, sort of like seemingly act a bit more sad than she really is for this. She's been planning ahead of time to frame David for her vote. And despite it seeming kind of obvious from our perspective, unfortunately, Davon does fall for it hook, line, and sinker. Following this vote, she is furious at David, and we get a lot more feed cuts. As you said, it's not super relevant at this point, because what happens is Memphis wins the next HOH, and once again, guess who he would like to target?
David.
Yes, but I guess we should just sort of finalize our thoughts on Ian this season as well, which is that he obviously was, I think, hoping to play a certain way. and found that the game had kind of changed around him, and that the way that he felt he could play was completely untenable. And once he saw that, he tried to shift, but there was nothing there, and there was no really hope of that happening. And while he kind of goes out in a dramatic fashion, it was ultimately kind of a losing battle to begin with.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the journey for him in the game was also not without behind his back comments being made about him that weren't the best. Like the critical response section of a Wikipedia article is usually where you're gonna be reminded of that kind of stuff. And for Big Brother 22, a lot of it has to do with Ian and the comments that were made about him. He was very open throughout the season about his autism, and just a lot of the ways that he, I guess you could say, acted in the house, or just the ways that he is able to kind of live within his own self, were being flagged up by a lot of other people in the house, and not always talked about in the kindest way, or the most understanding way. And I don't know, even in modern day, people forgetting, like people that know the game well and have been on live feeds before, forgetting that the cameras are on them or just not caring, was tough for him as well. So unfortunately, of course, the game doesn't go his way. Comments are made in such a way, and it's just not a great experience. But as far as my perception of what his experience must have been, he did seem to be okay once he gets to jury, and he's like, getting to be a juror for the first time. At least he got to have that opportunity for himself. And even at like the jury roundtable, I feel like he's just got like a good spirit about the idea of like deciding a winner. Of course, he's a part of a season where a very controversial jury situation takes place, and so now he gets to be a part of one himself. So at least there was that, but not the season that I think he was hoping for ultimately.
Mm-hmm. So Memphis wins this next HOH. He intends to kind of backdoor David in this whole unnecessarily complicated scenario that he set up, where he's going to like promise David
Right.
some things, and then he wants, when Tyler wins the veto, he's like, you weren't even supposed to win the veto, but now that you've won it, I want you to use it so I can backdoor David. And Tyler's kind of like, no, like I'd rather not do that. Tyler basically refuses to use the veto, which leaves Davon and Kevin up on the block, and ultimately they send Davon out the door here.
Yeah, I mean, it was just at that point she had used the veto on Kevin. She's again, it felt like they were waiting for a reason. That Davon is a bigger threat, a bigger person that will use their thoughts, will use what they want to see out of the game, and enact it into active
A
conversations
lot
with
harder
others.
to manipulate.
Yes,
She has a will
and
of her
so
own in a way that the other two at this point didn't seem to have as much of.
not even a little bit for the other two guys there. She's got these relationships with Danny and with Nicole, and Cody's very aware of that, and he's gonna say, well, if there's anything going on here, this is the best way to end that now, and let's get rid of her. So end of her run for now on Big Brother. Again, would so not be surprised if she's back at some point, but of course has gone on to do 7,000 other shows since then, and will continue to be booked and busy. So that's the queen, Davon Rogers.
Mm-hmm. Cody wins the next HOH. There's honestly some uninteresting drama with him and Kevin when he finally decides to turn on Kevin. Kevin thought maybe there was something there with Cody. Turns out there wasn't. Cody does this sort of classic thing of sort of like, oh, it's your fault that I'm turning on you. He nominates Kevin and David. He also wins the veto. He also is going to basically buddy up to David at this point and really like pull him in and be like, hey, I got your back. Don't worry about it. That's also pretty much irrelevant considering the results of the following week. But this is going to be a pretty uneventful end for Kevin's season.
I'll push back a little bit on the drama being not that exciting, because when Kevin goes into that HOH room and basically threatens his jury vote to Cody, and we see angry Cody, when all season long
It
we've
didn't
seen like
amount to
coasting
anything, though.
Cody.
He still voted for him.
I mean, yeah, but like in the moment, Cody just being so taken aback that somebody would do that to him, threaten their jury vote. He's like, I'm playing Big Brother. What else do you want me to do? Like, and then he was so annoyed at Kevin, and Kevin eventually kind of like turns things around to like apologize and say he didn't mean for it to come off that way. But just to see Cody again, who's like playing so well, like has such a good social game as he always does, like get angry in the house. I'm like, ooh, this could be fun. It didn't amount to anything.
Very much your classic kind of like I have established a set of sort of standards, a set of sort of way of being in this house, and it benefits me. And so anybody that questions that or disrupts that or challenges that, you're trying to do something outside of the norm. And I take offense to that. And how dare you, actually?
And just ultimately, like, so disappointing, of course, for Kevin that he goes out in his whole season is such a not what we expected. I mean, we talk about Keisha and, after all these years, she disappointed us, blah, blah. We just covered all that. Kevin had weeks and weeks and weeks to not that like he could have made anything happen with the power structure of the game. There's nothing he could have done, but like, I feel like a lot of us were waiting to see just a little bit of fire, to see that like maybe any fire, to like see that we know that he wanted to, we know that he wasn't happy on the bottom, but like, it didn't feel like we got what we had been waiting all those years for.
Of all the players we saw, Kevin is probably one of the most sort of has the biggest body of work to be disappointed in season 22. Despite, never really having a chance to begin with, he is just consistently spun in circles all season long, right from go. And even in the moments when things have become very clear, he still will sometimes believe things he shouldn't. He will still sort of make wrong turns. It was definitely disappointing to see, as somebody who looked at Kevin as sort of like the biggest and best strategic player of season 11, which I think at this point, we probably talked about it during our season 11 retrospective. I don't think speaks very highly of the season.
No.
In general.
No, not much more to say. Just, was excited to see his name, could not believe it. And then, along with the results of the season just being the steamroll, it's just like, and you had the whole game to just light a spark, and there was nothing.
Yes. So Kevin's eviction kicks off a triple eviction.
Heyo, BB Can. What? Who? Where? Yeah.
They took one of... Listen, honestly, the triple eviction, not the worst thing that Big Brother Canada has come up with, but Big Brother Canada certainly not known for coming up with good twists. And so Big Brother US is going to take one from Big Brother Canada, a triple eviction. Kevin's eviction kicks it off. And then that leads into the second eviction of the night, where Memphis wins HOH again. And this time, finally, after on his third attempt, is going to be able to evict David from the game in slightly dramatic fashion, given that he puts Nicole up on the block with David, because at this point, there's nobody else to put up. All of the outsiders are gone. I owe Melissa $100 at this point, or very nearly so, if they just voted out anyone other than David. And so Nicole is the person that Memphis has the least amount of connection to within this group. At this point, he has started to work very closely with Christmas and very closely with Enzo, and he has had his thing with Cody for quite a while. I believe he has already, at this point, implemented his wise guys strategy, or is at least very close to doing so. I don't, because it was never really super relevant, and so the timing of it was never super important. But he has this tight thing with Enzo. He's not going to put Enzo on the block. He is tight with Cody, with Christmas, and Tyler's not a threat to Memphis at this point either. So in his mind, David or Nicole, either one of them could go, but obviously he's looking to take down David. But Tyler sees a brief window of opportunity. And despite his head not being in the game, he tries to take advantage of it. And pulling in Christmas, he's able to get 2 votes onto Nicole. Now, at this point, he thinks the other person that he has is also Enzo. And for as much as we want to rag on Enzo, specifically for this decision even, it's still relatively telling that all of these different people all thought they had Enzo, from Davon and Bailey to Tyler to Memphis to Cody to even, you know, Nicole was kind of convinced that Enzo would be on their side. They all thought that they could pull in Enzo. Ultimately, Enzo chose Cody, and so he does not join them to vote out Nicole, and David is evicted 3-2. And this is where a lot of people say Enzo dropped the ball. This was his chance to make a move, to take out Nicole and to overturn Cody's power structure. And in many ways, they are correct. But in many other ways, Enzo is never winning this game anyway.
Yeah, I think at that point he's choosing between, am I letting Cody win this game or am I letting Tyler win this game? Which player do I leave in as a piece for a more dominant player than me? Because of course David was with Tyler and Nicole was there with Cody. So I definitely don't feel like it was a make or break, move for his game to propel him to a winning position. I think he was always going to be at best in this kind of runner-up position. Honestly, probably ends up in a worse position if he, I think, makes that move, just based on the fact that if Tyler had that much control towards the end of the game, Tyler wants to go all the way to the end with David and Christmas more likely than anybody else. And if Tyler's able to make any of that happen, right? Like,
and Enzo's not winning these endgame competitions. So like his positioning to get there is low. His win equity when he gets there is low because he hasn't won enough competitions to begin with, and he's surrounded by comp beasts.
He's trying to make this thing with Christmas happen, that him and Christmas have a couple of conversations and like seem like, I need you in this game. Like, you're a strong competitor. We can, help each other out, me socially, you competition wise. But just they're both the extra pieces of more dominant players, and that's just kind of how they existed in this game, and often within both of their respective games of almost any Big Brother they might play.
The thing about Enzo is that he is like the best sort of like default winner that you could imagine. You think about like the default winners, aka the people who the jury voted against the other person and they ended up winning by default almost. Like if Enzo had been on season 19, he's a phenomenal person to win that season, because Enzo will be the guy that buddies up the most with Paul and helps Paul make all of the moves that they make that season, and then wins the game because, potentially Paul brings him to the end and Paul can't win. But Enzo has consistently been on seasons where, unfortunately for him, the people he's working with are not those people. They're not the people that are going to lose those jury votes. And quite frankly, I think he gets in his own way in that regard. He helps those people become those players. And he's just so good at doing that, and it makes him so bad at the game when you want to win the game.
Yeah.
He's a very interesting player in that regard. And I can see also why he's very frustrating for a lot of viewers to watch because of that, because he enables these big power structures. He doesn't even help himself win in the end.
Yeah, I never see a world that Enzo plays Big Brother and goes out earlier than the spots that he has gone out in. I think he can absolutely play Big Brother 100 times and make it to the final 4, I'll even say, like 98 out of those 100 times. And the 2 other times there was a twist or something like that that got him out. He is just so good at finding the people that like, and not even just like finding specific people. He's just so like, I can trust this guy. He is not like, he is going to be straight up with me if I know that I'm his person and we can ride all the way out in the game together. I mean, we talked about the beginning of the season with these, like with the Davon and Bailey side of the house, thinking that like they had Enzo and whatnot. It's just, he makes a lot of people feel comfortable. Of course, it's a different story translating that into a win in the end, but he has so many things going for him in the game. He just needs a couple more things to get the win.
Yes. So this is the end of David, who was at the very least funny to watch in season 22.
And not even the end of his reality TV career. A run on the Challenge USA was in this man's future. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so did most people. And that's okay, because nothing significant happened there either.
Well, then we get to the third and final eviction of the night in this triple eviction. And I think the biggest whiff from production all season, that Danny is evicted in not dramatic fashion when Tyler wins that HOH, throws up Danny and Nicole, also wins the veto, doesn't use it, and Danny is unanimously evicted. It's frustrating because Danny was the only other real power player left in the game. There was Danielle, or there's Danny, there was Tyler. Tyler's already lost all his power. And then there was Memphis. Danny had kind of been restricted by Cody, but she was a big personality and somebody that had a lot of dirt on everything Cody had been doing. There was a lot of, she still had the connection to Nicole to blow up what Cody had done. And there was just so much potential in the betrayal of Danny that was completely unrealized because she went out so quickly on Tyler's HOH, never even had a chance to blow anything up. This was the sole piece of drama left in the game. Obviously, the only thing really remaining from this point forward is Cody versus Memphis. But Memphis never had the kind of dirt to drop on Cody that Danny did. Memphis never had the ability to turn the people that were loyal to Cody against him in the way that Danny might have. So that was always just going to come down to competitions. So this was just such a frustrating result for the season as a whole. It was one final nail in its coffin.
And again, this is the point where I start to just say, bye-bye, all you people that thought you had this game in the bag. Like, time to go. It's really the only thing that I can find left of enjoyment. And when I say find left, I mean begin to find enjoyment in this season of just, you all can't win. And the people that go home earlier in this alliance, starting with Danny, you should have done literally anything else to disrupt the power. I mean, Danny was very much just not able to see through what Cody was doing all season by playing her completely. She was so convinced that she had one of the better relationships with him, that she could trust him. And even when she goes out, I'm just like, I still don't think you see it. I still don't think you realize just how much you were being snowed by him every step of the way. I mean, she wanted to eliminate the Janelles and Casers, thinking like, let me be, the one person that is from old school that can get in with these newbies. Not that Cody's a newbie at that point, but the newer school players. And no, like, you're still looked at as a legend of this game and not the most trustworthy, just somebody that I can't let Danny Donato get to the end of this game. I think that was something that was kind of always in the mind of a Cody. And just like the way that she plays the game in general, it's like, yeah, like, I can trust you to an extent, but never 100%, never all the way. And because she couldn't see that, especially with Cody, and of course, her relationship Nicole gets so messy along the way as well, that it's like, well, what is there to really hang on to at this point and hope that can that can really be your path to the end? It's just, the path was not there anymore. Tyler's still in the game. Her, Christmas, and Nicole had such a rocky relationship the entire game. Like, they're constantly talking about the other to their allies, like, oh, I don't know if I can trust Christmas. I don't know if I can trust Nicole. It was just never going to be one of at least Christmas or Danny that had success at the end of the day. Maybe Nicole could have, but it was a downhill, it wasn't going to end well.
Yeah, I mean, it was another example of like an old school player playing the new school game. And as opposed to how it happened with like Janelle and Kaser, where they got crushed by the weight of it, she was like assimilated by it. She tried to play that game. She made a name for herself doing the opposite, fighting against the veterans in season 13, and becoming a massive fan favorite. In season 22, she kind of joins the dark side in pursuit of power, and the fans abandoned her largely because of it, and they were disappointed with her performance, because not only did she abandon like the more interesting way of playing the game, but she also did so poorly. She was not able to hang with the people who were really good at this kind of thing. And she was just so firmly outmaneuvered that I think by the time she was evicted, yes, I think a large portion of the fan base was like, yeah, that's what
did you think was going to happen? Like,
yeah.
How did you not see that? You played this game 3 times. Like, and you're a fan. She's a big fan of the show, as far as I know. I think she's been watching in the times that she was off the show. You've seen people go down this road before. And it just felt so clear to us. And I know that we like have access to diary rooms and whatnot. but just like in conversations with her and Cody, the one that you were talking about earlier of Cody like convincing her to end up like going after Ian instead, put Ian on the block. I'm like, we see through this that it's very clearly Cody just like kind of using you, and you're not that close. You're, yeah. It was disappointing. I don't know. Like, we ever see Danny again? Maybe like in a hosting capacity, not hosting the show, but like hosting a competition.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't
I don't
know
think
if
she loved the experience of 22.
I mean, could be a solid pick for a traders type of vibe at some point, but on Big Brother again, I think it was a shock to see her on the list in the first place, and an excited type of shock.
Quite frankly,
shocker.
I think the traders is exactly where she should go. I think that's I think that she could find a lot of success there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Danny's gone. Cody wins the following HOH, and he has a little bit of a dilemma here. Basically, he can shoot at Memphis and Christmas, or he can shoot at Tyler and Christmas. And he ultimately decides Tyler is the bigger threat. He takes a shot at Tyler, and this is partly because Tyler has again sort of like started to rev his engines again. It's just far too late. He tried to make that move on Nicole. He's trying to gather his forces in Enzo and Christmas, and by this point neither of them are loyal to him. Both are ratting them out because both of them prefer Memphis over him. And so from Cody's perspective, Tyler is the one who is pushing the hardest, and Memphis is still somebody that can be dealt with later. The reality is that Memphis is actually probably a slightly bigger threat at this point. Memphis has tighter connections and more motivation to take a shot. But because Memphis's allies are Cody's allies, and they chose Memphis over him, the information coming to Cody is that I don't know if I said all the names correctly, but basically you get the point. Tyler ends up the victim here and goes out with, again, not much fanfare.
Yeah, I don't know that it takes I mean, it definitely feels like in some way this season is a stain on his legacy that he created in season 20. I think you could still very easily make arguments for him still being one of the better players that we've seen, but this season just for a variety of reasons, as we had already covered, and this end game just being players much more in the favor of Cody, just somebody other than him, than his own players. He only really had a chance of like Christmas being on his side at this point, genuinely all the way to the end of the game. And so it's that all kind of combined with the messiness of what happens with Davon and Bailey. I'm sitting there watching him get taken out of the game with a bit of a smile on my face of like, all right, let's move along. We already know which direction this is going, and I don't need to see you win this season. I know he still has plenty of fans out there. Also made a run. So many of this cast were back on the Challenge USA. So he eventually pops up over there, I think on the second season of the show. And so who knows? I know now he's got a child, so I don't know, what difference, if any, that makes in his future reality TV appearances. Very likely it means nothing as far as coming back on a show at some point, but who knows what he wants to do. Of course, a lot of intrigue, though, anytime that Tyler Crispin will pop up on a show.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this a lot. I love to contrast him with Vanessa. Vanessa is such a strategic player, him such a social player. They're so strong in their individual categories, and they sometimes lack in the others. It's only fitting, I think, that they are opposites in one other way, and that's something that we really learned in 22, but it makes sense when you look at Tyler's game in 20 as well, that Vanessa had a will of steel. She was just pure willpower, and Tyler, I think, just lacks it. He doesn't have the drive, the competitive drive to just destroy his opponents in the way that Vanessa does. And that lack of willpower manifests itself in season 20, part of what costs him the win. And it certainly manifested itself in season 22. And despite having a lot of skill and talent for the game, it is not going to be enough if you don't apply yourself.
Yep.
So we head into the next round, and this is really it. This is where it's make or break for Memphis. It's Tyler, or sorry, it's Cody, Nicole, and Enzo versus Memphis and Christmas. And in this HOH, it's 2v2. It's because Cody can't play. And this is the closest Cody honestly comes to losing the entire game, because he really did leave it a little close here with Memphis. And if Memphis or Christmas had been able to win this competition, Cody is in a lot of danger. It's likely him and Nicole on the block. Nicole, we know, wins this veto. And that could be it for Cody after everything. People forget how close Memphis was to potentially winning this game. Luckily for Cody, Nicole pulls out a win in this final 5 HOH, which spells doom for Memphis as they send him out over Christmas.
Yeah, in Memphis's final moments, you kind of see him like almost like he becomes the sad puppy walking around the house, expecting like to be taken on a walk. Thinking that like everything is great and happy, and don't we all love each other? We're going to the end of the game together. Like this is everything is fine. Just thinking that these relationships that he had built with Enzo, especially like you were talking about with the wise guys, and of course Cody from like very early on in the game. Of course, these relationships should carry him all the way through to the end of the game. Come on, the wise guys. But no, at this point, Cody has very firmly, decided that Memphis is a big threat. Of course, socially, miles ahead of Christmas, as far as like thinking who makes more sense to go deeper into the game with. And Enzo's going to go along with what Cody thinks for the most part at this point. So it's just kind of an easy decision for Memphis to go. And Nicole was very happy to get this move made on Memphis at this point.
Yeah, this is really such a dominoes kind of falling moment where, a couple weeks before it was, it was that like meme where there's like a person behind each person with a gun, like every time.
Yep.
It's like Tyler was behind Danny, and then Tyler thought that like Enzo and Christmas would back him up, but then it turns out they were both betraying him for Memphis, and then Memphis thought, yes, I got them to betray Tyler for me, so now I'm going to get them to go after Cody. And then it was like, nope, Enzo's actually also betraying you for Cody. And it just kept going further and further. And of course, it ends with sort of Cody standing behind Nicole, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, I'll say it again. I mean, close. If Nicole doesn't win that HOH, if Christmas or Memphis does instead, it's an entirely different end game. But ultimately, Memphis goes down here. He wanted to make this Wise Guys alliance with Enzo, where it was him, Enzo, Cody, him, Enzo, Christmas. And he names both of the alliances the Wise Guys. He thought that would be very funny. And what was funny is that Enzo, who was in the core of that alliance, ratted it out to Cody.
Yep. So, didn't take long. Did not take long. I mean, also funny at that point is Christmas going, I'm not a guy. And so, that's not the point. But so he's just getting caught doing a little bit too much here at the end game and not with people that he can actually trust.
The weird thing is, though, it didn't even matter. Like, he got caught, but like this was where he would have gone out anyway. Like, like none of what he did ended up actually getting him targeted. It was so strange how he played that game.
Memphis is going to do in life is get caught. So that is a theme all the way to this day. And so,
So that, of course, brings us to the final four, where Enzo, with some help, ends up winning the final 4 HOH. Cody wins that veto. And again, these are like do or die wins for Cody. But he set himself up in a position where he is hopefully stacked the deck in his favor. But like this is not quite the end game that you would assume given the dominance he showed all season long. Like if you look at the dominance of Derek in season 16, basically no matter how those end games played out, Derek was always making it to the end or very likely making it to the end. The same can be said of some other dominant winners. Cody did rely on some key competition wins in this end stretch of the season. But what he did was minimize it to the smallest amount possible. He stacked the deck in his favor as much as possible, and ended up winning these competitions. And so it didn't really matter. But I do think it's interesting to look at because I think the strongest portions of his game were the beginning to middle And then it's actually toward the end where things start to come apart, but not enough for it to matter given his strength in competitions.
And no, that's maybe why he gets like 9 instead of a 10 on a Stockwatch rating at some time or another. But for the majority of the season, even all the way down to the end game, it's still really hard for us to sit at home feeling like he doesn't have it locked up. It was weeks of feeling that way. So
yeah. So this is the end for Christmas, who, at least she had a better showing than the first time around, in terms of like, in terms of like, honestly, like, was she likely to win this season? No. Honestly, actually, maybe I need to retract that. Maybe she was more likely to win season 19 than this one. I think that's actually very true. But she played more actively, at least.
Goodbye. I don't like I said, rooting for these people to go home at this point. With Danny, it was like, okay, you played yourself, time to go. With Tyler, same kind of vibe, plus a little bit of personal stuff going on there. Memphis, get out of here. Christmas, go away, get off of my screen. So just like was so fed up with so many of these people, and just so satisfying to watch them get eliminated. Christmas, of course, in season 19, very famously, is at the end of the game with 2 people that she considers such good friends. And you know what? You guys go to the end of the game without me. It's fine. Here,
it's weird to say that was closer to a win than this one. It's weird, but it's true. It's weird, but it's true. That's the difference. That's what I'm talking about. Winner by default.
Yep. But here, no, she was very upset to be getting eliminated this time around, but there was no path. I mean, I don't know what world she saw for herself to go forward in this game, because Enzo, Cody won the veto. You can't convince Cody. The option was Nicole, right? It was Christmas or Nicole that was getting evicted there. In no way is that not sending Christmas home every time. So goodbye, good riddance.
Once Christmas is gone, the game has ended. And that's because Nicole will take Cody. Enzo will take Cody, at least very likely. And he's also the least likely to win this HOH anyway. And Cody will take whoever he wants. It doesn't really matter. Cody just wins. This is weirdly remembered incorrectly a lot. People, for some reason, maybe it's the episodes, I don't recall exactly. For some reason, many people think that Nicole was one HOH win away from winning the game because she would have cut Cody. But we know from the feeds that is not true. She very much was planning to take Cody to the final 2.
She even says in her exit, I think, interview with Julie, right immediately after getting evicted, I think she says she was going to take Cody to the end, even thinking that there was a chance she might lose to him. Or maybe I'm thinking of her interview with you. But I feel like it was pretty sure that she was going to take him.
It's also possible, I think, that some people think that she might have had a chance to beat Cody, but we also know this to not be true, at least to the best of our knowledge from jury interviews and jury segments. Cody was for sure winning against anyone, especially if she had taken Cody to the end. Cody just won.
I mean, just looking into that idea or that possibility, it was like, are we about to have our first 2-time winner of Big Brother? That was an enticing offer to a lot of people, even though a lot of people weren't big Franzel fans. By the way, haven't really mentioned, but that's what we called her the entire season, because there were 2 Nicoles. So she did become Franzel. I feel like has gone back to becoming Nicole or Nicole F at this point. She does kind of become a 2-time Big Brother winner eventually. I don't know if Reindeer Games is getting its own recap around here. It should, as should OTT at some point. But yeah, a really impressive run for her given the circumstances of this game, given how things could have gone if Janelle had gotten a taste of power. She just did what Nicole Franzel does best in Big Brother, and did it almost as well as she could have, throughout, for what I would have expected or, hoped for from her if I was actively rooting for her, I guess I could say. She did a lot of good stuff in this game. Just fell short.
She kind of plays her own version of what we talked about with Enzo, where she's just very good at playing a game that is not necessarily a winning one. But I would say she often has more win equity than Enzo does. And that's because she's a better advocate for herself. She's a more weirdly respectable player, with more agency and more sort of moves that she can claim of her own. But even the season that she won, she had planned to go to the end with Corey, who would have beat her. And the same was true of this season. She was planning to go to the end with Cody, who would have beat her. And she basically was sort of required a situation where those players were taken out by other players against her will in order to win. Imagine a world where she, again, doesn't win that HOH at Final Five. Instead, Christmas or Memphis does. They take out Cody. Yeah, that makes Memphis the most likely winner at that point. However, it does give Nicole the ability to now win the game. All she needs to do is win a couple of these, Final Four, Final Three, take Enzo or Christmas, and Nicole wins this game. And that's a spot she was completely locked out of once both Christmas and Memphis were evicted, because she planned to go to the end with Cody. I don't think that makes her a bad player, certainly not. But it is sort of like her fatal flaw when it comes to, I think, the way that she tends to play the game, is that she is too loyal, which also kind of makes her a good All-Stars player, because if you are a person that thinks they have Nicole, then you can expect her to go to the end with you, even if you think she will, even if she thinks she'll potentially lose against you. The problem with that is that she's also quite racked up quite a list of betrayals.
Yeah,
so
that's I mean, when you look at
confident.
When you look at the jury of this season, you have Ian, who doesn't love the way that he went out, that she did vote for him to go. And I think the goodbye message I feel like she left him was a little bit not super truthful, if I'm remembering correctly. I feel like there was some hurt feelings there. And then Danny also, of course, and Nicole's relationship, not the best at that point. I don't think Davon is voting for her again if she has the option to do so after what they've gone through. So you're already down a couple of votes.
Davon does eventually learn the truth about Nicole's vote, but almost all of it and the subsequent arguments that came from it hidden by feed cuts.
Yeah. So it was definitely not a perfect game. Again, a lot of good things, but also plenty of slip ups along the way. But similar, like you were just saying, to Enzo, at least for me, in the fact that I think she could replicate this very often. So
I agree. And I think, and as I mentioned, I think it does actually convert to a win a decent amount of the time, and certainly more often than I think it would for Enzo. This also is at least sort of like a final breath, a final gasp of entertainment from the season when Cody cuts Nicole at the final three. It is the culmination of sort of Nicole's games over the last few seasons. The sort of redemption for Cody after what he did with Derek, and she's shocked and blindsided and betrayed. Awful for her, but of course good entertainment for everyone else in this awful world of reality television.
It was so brutal. Yeah. She gets to talk to Julie. She can't even speak. She gets to the backyard and the camera's just focused on her. It's starting to hit her what just happened, and the tears are flowing, and she's just she can't she doesn't know what to make of it, to the point where, I don't know, can you remember how long after the season that you interviewed her, because she still didn't seem okay? It was.
I remember talking to her. I don't think it was too long after the season,
I don't think so either.
I remember her being actually pretty grateful for the conversation, because it was a little therapeutic for her to kind of
I'm sure
run through it all and sort of.
But she just still seemed upset. Obviously, this was still very fresh. She had spent the whole season thinking that this relationship with Cody was going to get them both to the end of the game, and to not even get second place money after all of that, and just the betrayal that she felt there. I imagine it took a while to get over. And we see them back together again in Reindeer Games to bring it up again. And at that point, they're again going to work together. But of course, Cody's not going to be around for long enough for it to mean anything that time around. If there's ever a time for
she needs other people to take out the people she's loyal to.
So it was brutal, but it was the whole season, march to the finish for Cody. It gave us one last big, oh my God, what's happening? Or maybe the first one of the season there on finale night.
And so that, of course, leaves Enzo and Cody in the final two. We've spoken plenty about both of them at this point, so I don't think we need to lock in super hard on either one. Cody wins the game unanimously. I think only second person to do so at the time in the regular edition of Big Brother US. The first person with a 9-person jury to do so as well. Of course, this is going to be immediately replicated in the following season. So that is not a record that is going to hold. But what else is there to say? As we mentioned from the beginning, it was like he was built in a lab to win this season, and he did.
Yeah. When you talk about him and like the winner rankings type of thing, there's going to be things that work against him when you compare him up against the greats. The fact that it's an all-star season in general, and he had so many relationships coming into it, but it's really hard to point to too many things that he did poorly throughout the season. Of course, getting every single vote in the end is pretty, tells you all you need to know about that. So, like you said, what else is there to really say? He absolutely crushed the season in so many different ways. Even if the comps weren't all tailor made for him and his alliance, I still think he does a really good job in getting to the end of the game. It's just impressive stuff.
Yeah. And that's Big Brother 22. I would say probably the most hated season of all. Big Brother. I would say for a few reasons I will say that, because obviously there's some other contenders, but I think not only was it, I think, a very boring season for most people, but it was a very boring season in a time when people really wanted something to entertain them, which was frustrating. So that adds to it. It also is a season that sort of ruins all future all-star seasons. People have been waiting for an all-star season for so long, and so for this one to be disappointing and also mean that there's likely not going to be another all-star season, perhaps ever, is very frustrating for many people. It also ruins the legacy of many fan favorites, many cult favorites in the community. So that's very frustrating. And only further, like, is the true epitome of everything that the newest era of Big Brother came to represent, of big alliances, competition dominance, no power swings, so on and so forth. There's just so many things going against this season. It's hard to find anybody that will even like stick their neck out to defend it at all.
Nope.
And on top of all that, it's like the most recent season that was that bad. Even like a Big Brother 25, which I think has many rightful sort of detractors, at least it had a really great first half, and it had Suri. Whereas, this one, just there are very few things you can look at or point to say these were redeeming qualities. And so I think probably the universally most disliked season of the show.
Yeah, I had I guess pitched myself for this season, for the series here, and people were like, "Why? What is wrong with you? Why would you do that to yourself?" And it really just came down to, like, we were home, I was watching this. I was watching deeper into these feeds than I had in a couple seasons, and even seasons after that kind of went back to normal life a little bit, and so just felt like I had absorbed a lot of it, but all for the wrong reasons. It was so bad. It's definitely, like, I don't know if I've fully sorted through my bottom seasons in exact order, but it's like bottom 3 for sure, if not bottom 2, if not bottom 1. It's really bad. It's really disappointing. You can take away a lot of discussion, as we just did, about so many of these players and what they brought to it, what they could have done better, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, it was disappointing. Luckily, as far as, again, the series is concerned, 23, 24, 25, there's a lot more good to get into. So excited to hear those discussions and, I don't know, just get back into better Big Brother and put this all in the past for, a while to come, I guess.
Well, that leaves one thing left on the agenda. Who is on the poster for Big Brother 22?
Two of them feel pretty obvious. As I said before, for BB21, I feel like this isn't a Jackson Mickey kind of situation where it's like, oh, this guy sucks. Cody is Big Brother All Stars, so if he's not on the poster, I don't know what to make of it. And then to follow that up, I mean, just especially with the finale of Cody and Nicole's dramatic ending, it feels like Nicole has to be a lock for a second spot there. After that, I can see a couple different directions that it can go. But just like if I'm making my firm pick in the same way that this person was on the poster for the last season that they were on, I feel like even though they don't make it super deep into the game, it's America's favorite player of this season, and they just represent kind of like what hope that we could have had for where this season could have gone. And it has to be, for me, it would be Devon is in that third spot. And honestly feel like she's got a good chance of being voted into that spot, and this could be the 3. But if somebody, I don't know, if Enzo sneaks in there, Tyler maybe.
I don't see Enzo or Tyler. I think I could see like a Kaser or Janelle, quite frankly.
Possibly. I mean, do they split the vote there? Do they like?
They might split the vote. That is a
Yeah.
problem. So that would not be helpful for them. I do think Devon has a strong case, and I mean, you could like. I don't think. I mean, I think there's a world where you could make a case for Memphis, but I don't think it's happening. You could make a case for Danny, but I don't know if she has the support. Like I said, like I think it's that third spot is probably going to somebody that the fans like and want to
I
see.
think so. Yeah.
I would not be surprised at all. Devon is definitely one of the first thoughts I had to sort of represent, because you kind of want some representation for the not power structure.
Which is what America's favorite player is at the end of the day. You know, you have the opportunity to vote for someone to take home money that otherwise was not winning any in the game. And so, you know, we were able to get that to Devon that season. So if she won that vote, I don't know why she doesn't win this vote. So that's what I think.
But I wouldn't necessarily underestimate Janelle, who has been a powerhouse in these votes in the past. But you know, I think I agree. I think that Kaser and Janelle might split some votes, even if they did have some. Not that you have to split votes, because you can choose 3 people. But you know, we'll see. We'll find out.
Yeah.
All right. That is it then. That is what we have for Big Brother 22. I will be back next week to talk about Big Brother 23, where I really do think we enter a bit of a new era of Big Brother, but only in sort of, I think, the casting sense, not quite yet in the competition structure sense, unfortunately. Yep. So plenty to talk about there. In the meantime, you can find me over on YouTube and Twitch, reacting to the Genius on YouTube. I also started up a Patreon where I'm reacting to the Devil's Plan. If you want to check out those videos. You can also check out all the stuff I'm doing over on We Know Scripted TV, talking about The Last of Us and all the other shows going on the Tastemakers. Matt, what are you up to?
I am up to talking about a couple different reality shows, one of them being Big Brother. Aman Adwin and I do a weekly Big Brother podcast where, if you like talking through all the games past Big Brother players, that's what we do over there. We're doing a fun little format, different format on just general Big Brother player discussion, where we are doing a years-long bracket to try to find the best player in Big Brother history. I'll tell you, a lot of players from Big Brother 22 have already come up, and not to completely spoil results, but a lot of them have gone through. Only 2 so far from the season that have been polled have not. And they won't surprise you, but I won't spoil it all the way. So check out the Diary Room podcast for all of that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And then talking all things The Challenge on the Free Agents podcast. It's currently the off season of The Challenge, but we're talking through all of the old school seasons. So Taran's tried The Challenge before. Maybe he would like the old school seasons better. I don't know. Could make that pitch sometime offline. But Old School Challenge has been a lot of fun to revisit. So we're doing all of that right now on the Free Agents podcast. And we'll be talking about season 41 when that starts up sometime this summer. Otherwise, I'm on pretty much every social media at my name, at Matt Liguori. And that's what I got.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today. And I will see all of you next time.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.